One of the common conversations I have with my colleagues in franchising, whether it's a franchise candidate, a franchisee, or a franchisor, is how do I find the right people? And when I do find the right people, how do I know that they're going to stay with me for longer than 6 months? Join me today. Do not miss this episode of the Successful Franchisee's Beautiful View, because I'll tell you about a company led by Matt Herrington. It's called Hire Aligned, and how they're helping to change how hiring is done and find the right people that are aligned with the values and vision of your company. Stay tuned and watch till the end. We'll tell you how to get a hold of Matt. Welcome to this episode of the Successful Franchisee's Beautiful View. And today, like we always do, we're bringing you value with someone who is going to be able to bring value to franchisors and franchisees in the hiring space, which is typically one of the first issues that I hear from both franchisors and franchisees getting into business of how am I going to be able to find the people? And I brought in my friend and Matt Warrington or Harrington. He and I met, geez, it's been years ago, and I can't even remember. It was
On a
with the
webinar of some kind, I think.
it was the webinar that I think Joe Bazzello and Tom Healy brought you in to talk with our group. And we've just stayed in touch ever since. So Matt started a new group called Hire Aligned with his partners. And Matt, tell us the value of Hire Aligned and a couple of success stories that y'all have had.
Yeah, for sure. Like you mentioned, like I like to put myself in the shoes of a franchisee, and it's like you're excited, it's new, it's fun, you got like big vision, and then you realize like we got to find people to run this thing, whatever it is. And that can feel a little heavy and honestly like suck the wind out of you a little bit. Um and so that's really like where we want to position ourselves like at, at Higher Line is like let's shift that mindset from like I have to find people and it's hard to find people to like, hey, we're gonna find the people that are gonna work within our franchise or within our business. So we we really believe in alignment. I mean, obviously it's in the name that alignment matters. Like if you think about all like the times in your career or in your business when you've been the most frustrated, it's actually when you're out of alignment or when you have people around you who are out of alignment with you. And so that's really the aim and the value that Hireline is bringing is like, hey, let's get an understanding of like who you are and how you are that the software handles collecting that from real people, not like hypotheticals, from you and your team, and then have it screen applicants based on that um, for you so that you're not using all your bias at the beginning in that process. So that's a brief overview of kind of how Hireline works.
Yeah, well, thank you. And what are a couple of success stories of clients that you're already working with, whether they're in franchising or not? Because franchising is strictly a growth strategy.
Right.
That's all it is. It's not some industry or anything like it. It covers every industry you could imagine. So, what are
Definitely.
some success stories, whether it's franchising or not?
Yeah. So it's funny because it was actually the one that comes to mind that's the most pertinent, I think, to what you're saying, like the scaling model or the growth model, is a company called Lease End here in Utah. And when we found them, they were already growing rapidly and had big aspirations to grow. Their intentions, I believe, are to sell the company before too long. So that's kind of their mindset. And so they're high growth, but they're also trying to stay lean, which may also sound familiar to a franchisee who's trying to figure out this world of hiring and people and also not needing to have like a fully built out HR department, right? So when we found them, they were talking adding over 100 people in a year, which, depending on if you've ever tried to do that before, you may not think that that's a big deal. But if you think about reaching, identifying, screening, qualifying, and hiring 100 people um, with no HR team, that's pretty overwhelming. And so they have one talent acquisition person in the department where they're doing all the hiring, and she has been able to hire over 60 people already with just herself. And so that's like the short-term immediate value or relief to the pain point that we provide is the time savings and just like the logistical, being able to actually handle that many applicants in a way that's not overwhelming. And then the more long-term value comes in that the software is built to screen based on your actual team and culture and values. So you're decreasing the risk that these people that you're hiring are going to be out of alignment and contribute to friction, conflict, disengagement, and maybe even burnout. So the long-term value comes with, if we're hiring people who are more aligned and identifying them early on, well, then that's also going to contribute to increased engagement. And therefore, most of us know that the data that's out there, increased productivity, increased profitability, all those beautiful things and buzzwords that we like to see.
Mm-hmm. And explain a little bit the process of what that one person HR department is doing, and
Yeah.
how does she interact with Higher Aligned on a daily basis to bring those 60 people in this year?
Yeah. Yeah. So the very first thing that HireLine asks of a company is that we got to have your internal team interact with the software. It's not a big ask. It's asking your people for 15 or 20 minutes. And the software asks them questions and asks them to share experiences in an interactive, like AI-driven conversation, where you're answering questions like, what's like, share an experience or like share an example of a leader that you've like had respect or admiration for. What does it feel like to go into work on Monday morning? Like, just things like that, where we're asking to share experiences, very open-ended questions. There's no right or wrong answer. It's just like, hey, share your experience and tell stories. And from that, we're able to really like suss out or boil down, like, okay, what is making this team tick? Like, what really is the reason why they're showing up? What's their purpose? How really are they treating each other and their customers? And then, like, what really are their priorities? And from there, we have this benchmark of that team for those three categories: purpose, people, and priorities. And then when you create a role and you input like job description, as much detail as you can into the software, is like, hey, we're looking for this type of person and for this role. It creates a link that then goes out to the applicants, and it's a very similar interaction that the applicant now has with the software, where they're answering questions and sharing experiences about them. And again, 15, 20 minutes. Sometimes it takes a little longer if people are really pouring their heart out into the assessment. And what that then does is it eliminates bias. So if you think about bias for just a second, it doesn't usually end up being very helpful, because we have subconscious biases that we don't even really know about. And so we're disqualifying people all the time, or qualifying people all the time based on our biases. And we may be missing the very best, most aligned people just because of that. So it's cool to have the frontline screener be completely blind, doesn't know what gender it's talking to, doesn't know the age or race of the person it's talking to. It only knows, hey, we're looking for people who are aligned with our team culture and our values. And so, for example, like you asked, like, what does she experience on a daily basis? So she posts the roles and makes sure that the link is going out to applicants on a daily basis. I see her logging in because I get a notification anytime anyone logs in, probably 2 to 3 times a day. And she's going to the dashboard of these roles to look at how the candidates are being ranked in the dashboard, both for culture and value alignment, first. That's like the first score. And then the second score is job match. So there are specifics that you need someone to have in certain roles, certain experience, or maybe it's a licensing thing or other certifications, like depending on if you're in the health world or the insurance world, like there's very specific things that you're looking for from people. And so in that way, you get maybe 50 applicants. And instead of trying to decide how to sort through 50 applicants, which I'm sorry, but I don't believe that any human can actually do that. Especially not in 2025 with all our attention spans being so short. You can go into the dashboard and you can see how those 50 applicants stack up against your team and your culture and your values and the specific role that you're hiring for. And then you can focus on those ones probably towards the top. You can look more deeply into the transcript of their conversation. You can see some of the summaries that are there and decide, okay, yes, I want to interview this person or these people and go from there.
Yeah. Well, and thank you for that explanation. I'm curious, just a little process question. Um, how does HireAlign, let's say somebody posts this job opening on Indeed or whatever the platform happens to be. It's been so long since I've looked at any of those. However, people are finding applicants now. How does HireAlign integrate with that?
Yeah, so right now it's really just simply through an automated message. So if Indeed is the example we're using and someone applies on Indeed, you can create an automated message to go out to every applicant with that link to the higher aligned assessment in there. So the very first thing they see when they apply is a message that says, hey, we really care about our team culture. The next step is to see how aligned we are. Here's the link. Take 15 minutes to do that. That also ends up weeding out people because a lot of people don't do it. And aren't interested enough to take 15 minutes to do it. And that's a good first, sort as well.
Yeah, exactly. Cost is always a huge thing. How do you keep and what track record do you have of helping to keep costs down, not only long term with a better hire, but up front
Mm.
with this one person HR team being able to go through and hire 60 people?
Yeah. So I mean, obviously there's like I said before, the time savings and therefore the elimination of the need to hire more people to handle talent acquisition is probably the biggest, most immediate impact financially that a company would experience. Like, hey, we're able to do this with one person, so that's going to be a tremendous amount of savings financially. One of our core values is to deliver unquestionable value. And so we've created our pricing model to be that. Like we want this to be people to just be blown away after 6 or 8 months and say, I can't believe we're only paying this much for this service. And so we our pricing is driven by what the amount of hires that people are planning on making. And that's different than the traditional assessment world because traditionally people would, if they had like a assessment that they wanted people to take before they hired, they would typically try to whittle it down to 2 or 3 and then only have 2 or 3 people take the assessment because they're paying per assessment. So you don't want to send it to 50 people. That would be very expensive. Well, our model is the opposite where the assessment is the very first thing and you're not um, you're not paying based on how many people take the assessment. You're paying based on how many people you're hiring, which is like the actual, outcome that you're trying to accomplish. So,
Mm-hmm.
and then the long-term benefits, right, from a cost or savings perspective would be the increase in retention and the increase in engagement,
Sure.
which there's a lot of data out there about that. We are still new enough that we don't have as much concrete data as we will have eventually and as we'd like to have to show the retention numbers. And I can speak to a couple of our users that have been using it since the beginning of the year are experiencing like 80% retention, which is actually really phenomenal. Even short term, that's really good. So we are starting to see some really positive numbers and indicators for retention as well.
Well, and the other question, and maybe it's applicable, maybe not, but looking at it from a sales or marketing type viewpoint, what is the conversion rate if somebody scores high enough on the score to get to that next level in the company? What's the conversion rate for them to become a hire for that company?
Mm. Yeah. Yeah, it's a great question. So when the alignment score is high and the job match score is high, it's a pretty high chance. I don't have that number exactly because we're still figuring out how to collect that back from our customers, right?
Mhm.
And we have seen it. We have got that feedback just verbally though from both candidates and hiring teams or companies that are hiring, that it does increase like the energy or the desire in the candidate to work there because they have such a better experience than normal. And that's actually, I'm glad you brought this up because this is something that we baked in early on. Again, going back to like, we want to give people value, is that when, like, for example, if a company has 20 applicants and they all interact with HireLine, that company is only going to hire one of those people. However, all 20 of those people get a report to their personal email with a report indicating their alignment with that company and other insights into where they would be a good fit and the type of culture they would fit in with. So we've gotten a lot of good feedback from people about like, wow, normally during the hiring process, I get ghosted. Or if I do get, something back, it's just like a yes or no. And so the companies who use HireLine are actually elevated in the minds of candidates because all the candidates that are participating are getting value. They're getting a report that says, hey, you will probably be a good fit here, which if that's what it says, now that person really wants to work there, or it's increasing that, right? Or even if it's like, hey, you're probably not a great fit with this company. Here's some more value. Here's some things you will probably want to look for in your next company. Here's some questions to ask the next time you're in an interview, based on like the way you answered and what is going to be a good fit for you. Here's some of those insights.
Outstanding. Thank you. 36% of franchise brands are in the uh, quick service restaurant type business or food and beverage. Um, what level of employee does HireLine best help to find for employers?
Yeah, great question. So we really don't look at this as like level of employee. There is an indicator here though that would tell you if this is a good fit or not, right? And that is not so much level of employee, it's do you get applicants? The way HireLine is built, at least the way it stands right now, if you don't have applicants, HireLine can't help you very much.
Right.
So if you have a role that's entry level server cook and you get applicants, HireLine can help because you can basically, by the way your team interacts with the software and what you input into the system, you can affect what the system is looking for. So even if that's very entry level roles, that's fine. That's what you're telling that you're looking for. And so that's really the main distinction, is like not so much level of role as does this role attract people? Because there are roles out there that you don't get people to apply very often.
Sure. Sure. Well, I'm just thinking back to my franchise days when I was transitioning from owner operator and doing pretty much everything every day in the business to looking for and finding the right general manager to run the day, to take my spot and
Yeah.
run the day-to-day operations. How would HireLine help along those lines for that higher level of employment?
Yeah. So in a very similar way, right? If that was the role that was being hired for, then you and or any other upper level team members would interact with the software to establish like this benchmark or this baseline for how we actually live out our culture and our values. See, and I say actually because sometimes it's very different than what we think it is, or it's very different than what we claim it is on the wall, right? With our core values. So this is a way to get some insight into that too. Um, and then at that point, there's literally a part in the software when you're saying, hey, I'm going to hire a general manager. Okay. General manager goes in the top line. The next line is what team are they on or who do they report to? Indicate that. And then the next box is put in the job description and anything else you want the system to know about who you're looking for. So you get to just type or talk to the system and say, I'm looking for someone that is a type A hard driver, self-starter, whatever, right? And you can talk a little bit about the priorities. Like, this is someone that I really want to be available on weekends, or this is someone that doesn't need to be available on weekends. Like, as much information as you can feed it, then it's going to be looking for people who are expressing a similar thing in alignment. So we've had people use this for VP roles, and we've had people use this for entry level healthcare roles, and even in the restaurant industry. We have one restaurant that uses it right now.
Outstanding. And what haven't I asked you that folks should know about Hire Aligned?
You know, I more than anything, like, I'll go into a little bit of like the soft side of Hireline, like why we do this, like why we built this. If all of us can think back to a time when we were out of alignment with our work situation, not fun. Not fun to be misaligned with your manager. Not fun to be misaligned with the owner. Not fun to be misaligned with the type of work you're engaged in. And so we look at this as a way to really help companies identify people who are aligned with their team, and help individuals know if they're aligned with the company. It's both. We want both to succeed. And when there is alignment, both can be fulfilled, right? The individual can be fulfilled. Like, I actually enjoy what I'm doing. I'm not experiencing a ton of overwhelm and misalignment and conflict and stress. And the mission of the company or team can be fulfilled because of that alignment. And the other thing that I've seen that I'm really passionate about, that like when companies embed Hire Aligned into their system, yes, they are saving time. Yes, they are like streamlining a process, very like logistical, trackable things. But there's something else magical happening in the background when you use Hire Aligned. And it's that as you create a more aligned team, you can stop managing people as much and start leading people more. Because when there's alignment, now you can lead. You can lead to a bigger vision. You can lead because you have people who are aligned. So you're not asking, how do I get people to X, Y, and Z? You're saying, how do we create a bigger vision and help people step into it, which is very different. And many people have maybe actually never experienced that in a job. So that's like our secret, big, not so secret, big vision behind Hire Aligned, is like, how do we help create a world of aligned teams where leaders can lead instead of manage people?
Thank you, Matt. And how can folks get a hold of you or find out more information about Hire Aligned and talk with you directly?
Yeah. So honestly, the best way at this point for anyone listening is hirealigned.com. So HireAligned, hirealigned.com. There's a book a demo button on the front, on the homepage. So that's easy. People can find me on LinkedIn pretty easily, and we're fairly active there. So it's also another great way to get connected with us.
Yeah. And I'll put all that information down in the comment section for folks to be able to look at. Matt, thank you so much for being with us on this episode of the Successful Franchisee's Beautiful View. Please like, share, and if you know somebody who's hiring 100 people this year, make sure you show them this video. Stay safe and win every day.